Well, hey, what's going on, everybody? What is happening? What is happening on your Wednesday here, youth workers? If you are now just tuning in, you're just finding me. My name is Paul Turner. I am a part-time youth pastor, and you can catch me over here at the discipleproject.net, and I blog over there, have resources over there, all that kind of good stuff. So if you're not familiar with who I am, you can always visit the discipleproject.net and find out more about me. But this is office hours. This is where I answer youth ministry questions. And so if you're going to be joining us and you have a question and you're a youth pastor and you have a question about youth ministry, maybe you got something planned tonight that you're like, Paul, I got some questions about this, and you need some help with that. Well, I want to be able to help with that. And you can always drop a question down in the chat. So be sure to do that. And let's see, what else? Oh, yeah, if you are, once again, if this is your first time being here, well, then don't forget to hit that subscribe button. And that way you'll know, you'll have access to, obviously, all the videos I've done, which is a little over, I think I got 940, 950, something like that. I have 950 videos. I have a bunch of playlists for games, for all those things. And so, yeah, would love for you to join that. Don't forget also, hit that like button. That tells me you like these kind of videos. You like office hours. You like me answering questions, all that kind of good stuff. And then finally, don't forget to actually click that little bell icon right there down there, and that way you know when I will go live. And so that is that. And like I said, if you have any questions, if you're just joining me, be sure to go ahead and drop a question down below, and I will hopefully be able to answer your questions as we go along. Okay? All right. Question number one. What is the value of games that have a connection or application to your lesson? Well, it's a great question. And I often have people ask me, youth workers, or I assume they're youth workers, but they'll say, well, what is the point of this? What is the point of this? What is the point of this activity or this game or this thing? And I try to tell people sometimes that, listen, games sometimes are just games. It's okay to have fun. It's okay to play a game just for the value of fun. Fun is okay, at least in my opinion, to have at church. Is church always fun? No, because you're doing business with God, and sometimes God has business to do with us. And so it becomes a very different kind of time. I think youth can be entertaining in that way. I mean, if you love the things of God, well, then you're going to love the things that happen at youth. If you're not a Christian, you're there, and maybe you don't have a love worship or anything like that. Well, you may not have a good time in that regard. But I will say this in regards to games, and I have a number of games, by the way, on my playlist here. So if you just look through my playlist, there's one for all kinds of games there. I think there's up to maybe 60 games that you can watch on the playlist that I've played with my youth group or at camp or somewhere like that. Whole bunch of games there. But I find value in connecting, not every week, but I find value in connecting. And by the way, it doesn't always have to be a game. It could be an activity of some kind. It could be a team builder, and that team builder still works. That team builder goes in with your lesson. Like a couple of weeks ago, I talked about time, about priorities, about the fact that we don't have an unlimited amount of time. So I created a small square on the ground, and you can watch this. This is and I'll put a link down below if you want for this. But it was just basically an activity of how many students can you get inside this little square. And then I assigned, after they tried it the first time, I assigned them a value. I said, okay, you're going to be work, and you're going to be school, and you're going to be family, and you're going to be church, and you're going to be this. Now I want you to try to fit everybody in there. And clearly they could not, but and the goal was to have them make choices as to what is going to get in there. Not everything's going to fit in there because we have a limited amount of time. We only have 24 hours in a day. And so it's going to be limited. But it is about priority time, making time for the Lord. So there's an activity, if you want to call it a game, It was more of an activity or a learning activity or a team builder, but I found that worked really well. And so, yes, there's another one I did, just before I continue, there's another one I did that's called Pass It On. And it's basically where you just, and there's a video for that as well, if you just look at the playlist called Pass It On. And everybody in the group, everybody has to go grab something. Anything. It could be a chair. They don't know what they're doing. I don't tell them what we're doing. I say, look, just go grab something. It can be big, it can be small, it can be, whatever. And then they get in a circle, and then I tell them they have to pass these things. And then if anybody drops any of these items, well, then you're going to, that person's going to be eliminated, but their item stays in. And what that shows is, it says, look, as people drop out of church or youth group or something like that, there's a lot of things to be able to carry, these burdens, that people have, that we should, as believers, be able to help carry people's burdens. But it's also a lesson in responsibility. It's also a lesson in, what happens, that there's, more hands make it easier to carry the work that God gives us. And when people drop out of that work, well, then you have to create, you have to bear all the brunt. You have to bear all the items that are going around in the circle. And somebody just commented on that. Just recently, I'm talking about the responsibility of sharing the gospel, that when you have less people to share the gospel, then it gets harder to get the message out. And so I thought that was also a good point. So yeah, do I think activities and games, does it have to be every week? I know there's some people who think you have to have it every week. I mean, that you have to have your game or your activity go with the scripture or the lesson. And sometimes that's hard. It's just hard to match it up. Some things are, just like I said, games alone are fun. And the game's purpose is to allow students to kind of let their guard down a little bit, have fun, and then, you switch gears and then move into your lesson. But we'd love to hear your ideas and your thoughts on that. Do you connect your games and your lesson together? How often do you do that, if at all? And so if that's a thing, just leave me a comment down below. All right. So I think, yes. So yes, there's value in that. I recommend a book. It's a book I read many years ago, and I think it's still out there somewhere, called Active Learning. And it was put out by Group Publishing. And it was a great book because it talked about students and their need to actively do something in order to integrate it into their understanding. So highly recommend that book. I'll put a link down to that in the show notes as well. All right, number 2. Hey, it's graduation time. And this is a question that's just out there all the time. But graduation is quickly approaching for most of us. What do you give out for graduates to seniors? It's a question we ask every year. And if you're brand new, I understand the struggle. I have my opinions on this, because the standard thing to do is, well, you get everybody a Bible. Well, the problem is, that's not a problem, but everybody has a Bible already. And if you're going to give them a Bible, I think you got to go old school, and I think you have to customize it. I think getting their names printed on it. I think any time that you get a gift for your students for graduation, I think it has to be custom. I think anyway, and I'm talking about customizing it for that year, that group of students. Maybe you've gone through some things with them. Maybe you get a custom-made T-shirt that is very special for them, that has special meaning for that graduating class, something you've gone through, or those kids that have been in your group for 4 years or 5 years, and it's something very personal for them. But yeah, customize anything customized. A few ideas that I have is I had someone in our church last year for I don't think I have any graduates this year, but last year I had somebody who sews make custom stoles. And those stoles, you get those in school when you graduate. You get certain kinds of ones from different clubs or certain academics, math, those kind of things. We made some Christian ones that were really, really nice. Boy, she did a great job. And they were just custom. You can put your youth group name on them. You can put a scripture verse on them. We had a couple of crosses on there. Really, really cool. And so stoles are a really cool memento. Once again, you don't know 5 years, 10 years from now what that student's going to value. But I guarantee you this, if it's generic it will be less likely to be remembered. If it is custom, it'll be more than likely remembered, I think, and it will find a place in their closet, on a shelf, something very practical. Which is also, I would, do something like a survival basket. They're graduates. Not everybody's going to college. So, things like gas cards, food cards. I think you should spend what is appropriate. I mean, what are you going to spend on a Bible that they may or may not use? If you put a Bible in there, then give them also gas cards, food cards, if you know their favorite places to eat. Give them things that are going to be really practical. Give them something to get their oil changed. Give them a free oil change so they can go down and get their oil changed. You know how many teenagers in their vehicles have not had their oil changed? Or maybe it's somebody in your church who can do oil change, or maybe they work at a oil change place and say, hey, look, we like to, look, for every graduating senior we have, we like to send them in and pay for them. Would you give us a discount on, for that? Or, maybe it's a haircut place or whatever it is, but find some practical ways that what a student will need to prepare for the job market, for, going to college. Maybe it's moving boxes, something really simple, like pay for their moving boxes. I just think, listen, that we spend a lot of time and effort on things that kids don't care about. And I think we have to put our money where our mouth is, where the rubber hits the road, and we have to be able to say, look, this is important. This is practical. Did our church do anything? Yes, they taught us the Word of God, but did they do anything practical for us to launch us out? And I think that putting together a survival basket of some kind would be good. I also believe in what I would call prophetic gifts. And once again, it may have to do something with the year. Let's say you've had a year where kids in your group, and by the way, everybody doesn't have to have the same gift. If you want to customize them, you can. I know that people get upset and do this and that. I'm like, whatever, I don't care. But having custom or prophetic gifts, in other words, if you gave this is your last chance to really speak into the lives from a congregational point of view, because once they're gone, chances of them coming back, they're not coming back, at least for another 5 to 10 years, unless you've done really well at integrating them. They're going to stay local, they're working, or you may see them back 4 years after college or after they get married, something like that. But a prophetic gift is like a slingshot and a rock. Like I gave my students a slingshot and a rock and said, look, this is, and as part of my message on that Sunday morning, says, look, many of you have faced giants, right? And this is where, if your church will allow you to have maybe a student share, or you share generally, says, look, we have faced a lot of giants this year, right? In a youth ministry or in your lives. And so I'm going to give you this. And then you tell a brief story of how, God armed David with something that he uniquely could use to tackle the giants he would face in the land. And so when you give that to a student, you are prophetically saying to them, listen, I am arming you. Yes, we armed you with the Word of God, but we want to give you something that you can recognize as a signal to your brain and your heart that says, look, you are prepared, right? We have done our best to prepare you, to put tools in your hands, to prepare you for the giants that you're going to face. And another thing I did is you could do maps. I did a custom map where I had maps made that were to say, look, there is no perfect map to your future. You're going to have to draw your own map, but here's a map. And on that map, you can put key locations, or it could be like, whether it's scriptures on there, right? The map to success involves putting the Lord first. It involves being in a community of believers. It involves, having personal quiet time or whatever it is. But you kind of give them this map to help them do that. And it was a custom map. We rolled it up and gave it to them in like little tubes. Once again, I don't know what students do with these. I know some gifts have been kept, and some students have told me they have kept gifts that I've given to them on graduation. I've given them batons. It says, look, this is your next leg of the race. That you give them a baton and says, look, this is, we're gonna hand this off to you. We want you to hand it. We handed you the gospel. We want you to hand the gospel off to somebody else. And those are what I call prophetic gifts, because you're trying to one last time put into their mind and their hearts their task as they graduate. It's not just that they have knowledge. It's not that they just have they know a few Bible verses. It's not that they just went to a few youth events. It's not that they just went and have a few T-shirts, youth group T-shirts in their closets. But it's more so it's saying, look, I'm going to give you a gift one last time to help you understand the gospel and your responsibility to the gospel. That you're going to get this baton, you're going to get a slingshot, you're going to get a map. And there is a playlist. By the way, I'll put a link down below that if you're interested in this, there's a playlist to all these gifts that I've given out, how I made them, all those kind of things. So even if you don't use those ideas, God can give you the ideas of doing that a little bit further. So yes, so I think, once again, customize your gifts to your graduates. Don't be afraid to give a gift to one kid that everybody doesn't get. It's fine, right? If you want to give it to them privately, not publicly, that's fine. But make sure, I think, to send one last message to them about their responsibility to the world, that if they don't understand the gospel, or if they do understand the gospel, that they have a responsibility when they leave your youth ministry, right? That they do that. All right. Third thing is this. How can I do a better job of empowering my volunteers? So if you have volunteers, I do not have volunteers. I am it. I show up. I have a small youth group. I have maybe 6, 7. Now that's not true. I just lied to you. I have volunteers. They're not the kind of volunteers that stay down there with me every week. But I have volunteers that come in who our worship pastor comes down and helps lead worship. I consider him on my staff. Right? So, like I said, we got to get out of the mentality that everybody has to hang with you during the whole youth meeting. I have people come in and out who are volunteers who help facilitate that youth ministry. And so the worship pastor comes down, does, 10 or 15 minutes of worship. I have a lady coming down tonight who's going to do a little game for us, something she suggested. And I said, well, that'd be great. Would you come down and lead that? And she said she would. So I'm excited to have her come down there and lead that. But some of you have traditional staff, right? You have traditional volunteers that they stay with you within the program, and they help facilitate a small group, or they're helping with activity, or they do the game, or whatever they may be. But let me give you just a few thoughts on empowering your volunteers. First of all, equip them to the level that they want to be equipped. You understand their level. I know I am famous for doing this, that I will over-equip somebody who says, look, I am at this level. I don't want to be at this level. What is the basic things I need to know? So I will equip people based on their desire to do whatever role or responsibility they have, right? If I have somebody who's doing games, I will send them a playlist of links of games that I think are cool, right? And I'll say, okay, hey, you can use this list, but find something else, right? Search your own games, do that. That's fine. And I'll say, but I won't give them 10 books with games in it. I won't bug them with 25 links in their texts about this game or that game. I'm going to equip them to the level at which they're committed to. I'm not going to over-equip them. I'm going to equip them just enough to say, look, this is your role. That's what you want to do. And if they want more, then I will equip them with more. Not just for games, but as a whole, right? So I may put them on my email list and just send them as a group articles or things to be aware of, or notes just about our youth ministry, about, what's going on that we need to be aware of, that you should be aware of, right? So number one is, if you want to empower your volunteers, equip them to the level that they want to be equipped. Number two, take up for them when they're right. Listen, if you want to empower a volunteer, if they've done the right thing, don't throw them under the bus. And listen, you may get in trouble too. But when the dust clears, that volunteer knows that now if they've done something stupid, that's a different thing. You don't have to empower them for doing dumb things. But if they do the right thing for the right reasons, then empower them. If they've done the right thing for the wrong reasons, right? Work with them. But stick up for them and say, look, they're a valuable part of the team. Yes, did they execute that perfectly? No, but I'm going to stand behind them because maybe they just needed a little bit of training. They weren't being malicious. They weren't being deceitful or anything like that. You're just saying, look, I'm going to come alongside of them and I'm going to help them. And I want to empower them by believing in them and taking up for them when they've made a mistake. The fastest way to get rid of staff is simply don't stick up for them. They'll know whether you're sticking up for them or not. They'll know whether or not you are on their side or not, or whether they're just a warm body that, look, I'll replace you later, but right now I'm just going to throw you under the bus. No, if you want to empower them when they've made a mistake, or if they've done the right thing, take up for them and stand behind them as much as you can. Right? If it's something they've done that's really, really dumb, maybe not so much. But if their best intention is there, then empower them. Okay? Number 3, give them choices and the boundaries to act within them. Give them choices and boundaries. So you're going to give them agency. You're going to say, look, you're going to lead, but I want to give you the ability to make decisions, right? You're not going to make decisions for the whole youth ministry, but you're going to make decisions for your small group. You're going to make decisions for, for the activity, for the worship songs, if they lead worship, right? And all you're going to do is give them boundaries and says, look, you can make choices within this. Don't do any games that are going to hurt people, right? Don't do any games that are going to be too touchy. If that's the way you say, look, we can't do a lot of games that are touching because for whatever reason, okay? And you say, look, here's the boundaries. If you can equip and empower a volunteer with boundaries, you are saying, look, here's the boundaries. Everything within that is going to be fine. You're going to do fine with that. So the problem is when you don't equip your volunteers and you don't empower your volunteers with boundaries to work within, and then they step out of that and you get mad at them, well, they're going to tell you that you didn't tell them not to do that. You can say, do whatever you want. Well, they took that literally and they did whatever they wanted to do. So yeah, if you are going to empower your volunteers, give them boundaries to work in. It doesn't matter whether they're a small group leader, they're leading games, they're leading worship, they're on an event or activity or whatever, but give them room to make smart decisions. Give them the boundaries and then say, okay, act within these parameters. And you are empowering them to make right decisions. If they understand your culture, the basic premises of your youth ministry, the basic standards of the youth ministry, then allow them to operate in that to make wise choices. Don't treat your volunteers like dummies. Treat them respectfully and treat them based on the level, how long they've been with you. If you have an adult volunteer who's been with you 3 years, well, treat them differently than the volunteer who's only been there 6 months. And the 6-month person may need more boundaries than the person that's been with you for 3 years. So just act accordingly. Act like, that there's a difference between the person with 3 years and the person who's been with you 6 months. And then if you do that, then you are empowering your leaders, and empowered volunteers will show up for you, okay? Empowered volunteers will show up for you, whereas disempowered volunteers will leave you. So if you want to keep those leaders, empower them. All right. So any questions you have, now is your time to leave them because I'm going to start wrapping up. I want to thank everybody for being here. If you're watching this later on, if you have questions for the next office hours, we do office hours every Wednesday from 11 to 11:30, somewhere around there. Could be more, could be less, depending on the amount of questions I have. But if you have questions for me, then I want to hear from you. I want to be able to hear what you have, and if I can answer your questions there. Now, I will tell you this. If you say, look, Paul, I want to go a little bit deeper. Well, I want to tell you that I have something called My Monthly Mentor. It is a monthly coaching service that I offer. It is all for the cost of a streaming service, okay? So if you say, look, Paul, I don't have any money, well, cancel a streaming service. If you really want to get the lowdown, if you really want to get the sit down and have conversations like this for 1 hour, 1 hour a month, and says, look, every month we get together, we talk about what's going on in your youth ministry. We don't talk generics. I'm not recorded. and you're going to say, look, I want to talk and hash this out and talk about what's coming out of my church. I want to help. I need help planning. I need all those things. And, in doing so, saying, look, it's like I said, it's not super expensive at all, cost of a streaming service. And then what you're really doing in doing that, you're saying, look, I'm adding a 30-year youth ministry veteran to the team. When you're sitting and talking with me, it's like putting me on your team, and I'm going to help you. Just like any volunteer would. I become a volunteer who helps you then look at, maybe find your blind spots, or find the things that are going on that are going to be hazardous, or maybe you're doing things that you're sabotaging yourself with. You're trying to get this done, but this isn't happening, and it's because they're combating one another rather than complementing one another. So if you are interested in that, I would love to be a part of that. And one last thing, I know it's almost summertime, and if you're looking for devotions for your camp, I do have a few that I'll put a link down below. And by the way, link to the coaching, my monthly mentor, all that stuff will be down there. But basically, I have things like I have 5-day devotions, that you can do during your camps. And this particular one's called Game Not Over. It has a video game kind of vibe to it. I have this. By the way, this is just a list of like 9 sets of devotions I have. They all have different themes. Okay. I have this one here called Getting Real. It talks about real conversations Jesus had with people, and it's all about getting real with Jesus, if you're interested in that. I have one called Shine, which is, it says 5 weeks of camp devotion. It's supposed to be 5 days. 5 weeks, oh my gosh. But 5 days of camp devotions where you're talking about being a light and shining into the world. And then you have, those are my ones right now, but I'll put a link down below to the web, you can find them on my webpage, over at, if you go to thediscipleproject.net, you can find them over there. And the latest blog post will be right there. And it'll say, 9 ideas for camp devotions, I think it is. You can find it there. But you can also go over to my store, which is gumroad.com/youthmenresources. Links will be down in the comments below. And, that's what I have going on. I want to make sure that you're well equipped to do all those things that you need to do this summer. And so if you are needing coaching, if you are needing devotions, any of those things, links will all be down in the description. I hope that all of you guys and girls have a great youth meeting tonight, if you are meeting tonight, or if you're doing some sort of ministry tonight. I hope that goes well. And I hope that, like I said, that this office hours has served you well. I hope that it maybe answered some of your questions and helped you, with some ideas. And if it has, well, leave me some comments down below and let me know, and be sure to hit that thumbs up button. That's when you like the video and you want more of them. So until next week, prayer will be happening at 8 a.m. and then office hours at 11. And so I will meet up with you then. I hope you guys have an awesome day and have an awesome youth meeting. And I'll catch you guys in the next one. Have a great day, everybody.